Harry will have already created sufficient distance between Meghan and himself.
Lady Colin Campbell has named no one, but she has been specific. A woman near Harry's age, somewhere in the environs of Montecito, seen with him, and discovered, she says, in messages sitting on his own phone. Before you decide what that is worth, remember 1992, when Fleet Street called her a fantasist over what she wrote about Diana, and 3 years later, Diana confirmed it herself.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
On camera. So, the claim deserves a hearing, but it is not the most damaging thing ever said about Prince Harry's private life. That was said by Harry, under oath, in a London witness box. The claim and the woman making it. Here is what she actually said. She is careful about the geography. She won't confirm whether it's in Montecito itself or simply nearby. Only that it's in the environs. She says people have seen them together. And she ties it to the claim that Meghan discovered messages on Harry's phone. Now, the responsible part, up front, so nobody accuses me of burying it. There is no proof of this. None. Lady C is a commentator, not a court. And she is repeating what she says she has been told by people she will not name. The internet has already gone hunting and attached a name to it. I am not going to repeat that name or say a word about who she might be, because there is no evidence whatsoever behind it, and there is a real person on the other end of it who has done nothing to anybody. So, why give her claim any airtime at all? Because of 1992. That year, Lady C published a book about Diana that said the Princess of Wales was bulimic and had been involved with another man. Fleet Street tore her apart for it. She was called a fantasist, and worse. 3 years later, Diana sat down with the BBC and confirmed both, in her own voice, on camera. Lady C had been right, and everyone who had rubbished her had been wrong. That is the case for listening. Here is the case for caution. She has spent 30 years being briefed by people who move in the circles the Sussexes left behind, and briefings are not evidence. She has been wrong before. She makes no secret of her contempt for this couple, and contempt is a poor filter for information. She trades in the unverifiable, which is a comfortable position for a commentator, and a useless one for anyone trying to establish what is true. So, hold her claim loosely, because there is a far heavier document in play, and nobody has to take anybody's word for it. If you would rather have the version with the evidence attached than the version with the loudest headline, subscribe. That is the whole proposition of this channel. We go and check, and we tell you when the checking comes back empty. And on this story, the checking comes back with something considerably worse than a rumor. What Harry swore to. Before Meghan, there was Chelsea Davy. Zimbabwe-raised, blonde, entirely unbothered by palaces and protocol. On and off, the two of them were together the best part of 7 years. Longer, for the record, than the current marriage has lasted. He loved her a lot, and she really loved him, and they had great fun together. He liked it because she wasn't worried about the royal family. That wasn't a big deal for her. She just fitted in very easily. She fitted in easily. Hold that phrase up against the last 8 years. Now, the part that turns nostalgia into evidence. When Harry took the newspaper groups to court, he had a choice about what to put at the front of his case. He could have led with press reform, with principle, with the public interest. He led with her. And this is the distinction that runs through the rest of this video, so let me draw it clearly now. Everything Lady C says is commentary, a claim, offered in good faith or otherwise, that cannot be tested. What follows is testimony, sworn, filed, subject to cross-examination, and carrying a legal penalty for anyone who says something they cannot stand behind. In his witness statement, he set out what he believes was done to that relationship, the sense of being watched around the clock, the corrosive suspicion that nobody in his own circle could be trusted, because private conversations kept surfacing in print. A tracking device, he says, was found on her car, private arguments leaking, and a headline splashed across the papers the day they finally separated, which he describes as gloating, as though something had been won. Totally miserable, totally allowing his negative past to take over him. All of these court battles and just a great sense of sadness, actually, and anger connected to him. In the later action against Associated Newspapers, he went further and called what was done to that romance a nightmare, his word, not Lady C's, not mine, given in a courtroom. Then there is the book. In Spare, Harry went further than anyone had asked him to. He, as good as admitted he could not bring himself to pull Chelsea into this life, because he believed the press would hunt her down, and, read this next part slowly, that if the choice had ever genuinely been his, he would not have wanted the life either. The man is on the record, in print, under his own name, saying he would have walked away from the entire apparatus if somebody had shown him the door. And she was not the only one. Cressida Bonus, the girlfriend straight afterwards, went the same way for the same reason. 2 women who cared about him. 2 women who looked at what came attached and decided they would rather have a life. Though there is another version of the Chelsea ending, and I'm not going to hide it from you. So he started having affairs with all sorts of other girls. And she got very upset, and he didn't go and see her for a long time. So she went off and left him. Now that's his fault. 100% his fault. Both things can be true at once. The machine was brutal to him, and he was not blameless. Grown men rarely are, which makes what happened in May 2018 almost unbearable to look at. The Pew. Chelsea Davy did not vanish in a sulk. She did not sell a story. She did not write a book. She turned up. She sat in St. George's Chapel and watched Harry marry Meghan Markle, and she smiled for the cameras along with everybody else. The one who got away, in the pew, watching him sign up for the precise circus he had sworn he would spare her from. And remember what he had told a court he believed about that circus, that it had watched him around the clock, that it had turned his own friends into suspects, that it had, in his account, put a tracking device on the car of the woman now sitting a few rows from the altar. He knew exactly what he was walking into. He walked in anyway, and he did it in front of her. He did not escape the machine. He married deeper into it and moved the whole operation to California, where the woman who wanted nothing to do with cameras was replaced by a production schedule. You could not put that in a soap. They'd send it back for being too on the nose. And if you want the moment when a great many people stopped giving this marriage the benefit of the doubt, it happened in a car, at night, in Paris. Paris Fashion Week. Meghan is in the city for the shows. She posts a clip to her own Instagram. Night, back seat of a car, city lights sliding past the glass. She is reclined, heels up on the seat, filming her own shoes as the car moves through central Paris. Here is why it detonated. She was traveling along the river, a short distance from the underpass where Harry's mother died, in a car, at night, pursued by photographers. This is her in the car videoing herself with her legs up as she went past the tunnel in which Diana Spencer was so tragically killed in Paris. Her side said afterwards that she had not realized how close she was. Take that at face value if you like. But there are only 2 doors here, and neither one is a good look. Either she genuinely had no idea where she was, in the one city on Earth where her husband's mother was killed, or she knew exactly where she was, and posted it anyway. There isn't a third door. Even people who normally defend her struggled with this one. Well, how about having some thought towards your husband's feelings when you're in the same city his mum died in, running around having a joyride in Paris near where she lost her life? And here is the detail that gives it teeth. This is a man who had, not long before, told the world that a paparazzi pursuit through New York had left him frightened, and said in terms that he feared history repeating itself. His mother, a car, cameras in the night. That is not a talking point for Harry. It is the load-bearing fear of his entire adult life, stated publicly and stated under oath. And there is his wife, heels up on the back seat, on that stretch of riverbank, filming it for the feed. What makes it worse is that it was not a public engagement she had been obliged to attend. She was not there on duty, or at a memorial, or on anyone's behalf, but her own. She was there for Fashion Week, front row, and of every road in that city, she chose that one to put her feet up on and press record. You do not need a leaked message to picture how that landed at home. But if you want to know what a marriage is really doing, don't read the statements. Read the diary. 2 diaries that barely touch statements are written by publicists. Calendars are not. She has built an entire solo public life out there. Speaking engagements alone, galas alone, red carpets alone, a tribute evening for a close friend, alone. Again and again, the seat beside her, where a husband might reasonably be found, empty. She wants to showcase that image to the world, that she is the one who's the boss. And it runs both ways, which is the half people skip. He keeps flying back to Britain without her, repeatedly. He reportedly declines royal accommodation when he's there. This is also the point at which Lady C stops being a bystander in this story. She has been saying for years, long before any claim about another woman, that this marriage was structurally finished, that the separate lives were not a phase but the arrangement. Whatever you make of her sourcing this week, that particular call is now several years old and has aged uncomfortably well. It is why the claim landing from her mouth specifically did not surprise the people who follow her. The official explanation for the solo trips is the security dispute, and take it at face value. But notice how conveniently it works. The single obstacle preventing this devoted husband from bringing his family to Britain is the same obstacle that lets him board a plane and leave them behind whenever he chooses. He has said publicly that he wants to bring Meghan and the children over. Wants to, never does. A grown man narrating his own family's absence, hoping nobody measures the distance between what he says and where he actually books a seat. And none of this began with a rumor about another woman. It began with paperwork. The spreadsheet. 2 years ago, the pair of them quietly divided their working life in half. Separate Instagram accounts, her streaming arrangement and her lifestyle brand on one side, his Invictus games and his polo on the other. Everyone politely called it a professional separation. Very modern, very amicable. But consider what that actually is. You do not file a business divorce from someone you are still besotted with. You do not sort the assets into his and hers columns while the romance of the century is running at full tilt. And note what it cost them to do it. Their entire commercial value came from being a pair. The deals, the documentary, the interest, all of it was priced on the two of them together. Splitting the brand meant deliberately taking less money in exchange for more distance. People make that trade when the alternative has become unworkable. The separate lives did not begin with a secret. They began with a spreadsheet. Which brings us to what people who have known him for 30 years now say about the man himself. What's left of him? The portrait being painted of Harry right now is of a man who has been reduced. Some of that is coming from people with obvious interests, and I'll name the interest as I go. Clip, commentary. This is Samantha Markle. Caption her relationship and her litigation history on screen. Do not run it unlabeled. The answer is yes. Every single interview, every single picture, every place they go. Meghan grabs him, Meghan controls him. She controls every single situation like she is the star. That is an estranged half-sister with a documented grievance and a failed lawsuit behind her. Weigh it accordingly. I am not going to pretend she is a neutral witness, because she is not. And a channel that dresses up its weakest source has no business lecturing anyone about evidence. But here is what makes the charge difficult to dismiss regardless of who is making it. Harry had to publicly deny a report that his wife talks over him in his own meetings. Sit with that for a second. Nobody has ever had to deny being taken seriously. And then there is the homesickness he has stopped being able to disguise. He has written publicly that Britain will always be the country he proudly served. A line that royal watchers who cannot stand him read exactly the same way everyone else did. Harry and Meghan both feel that America is kind of cooling on them and they want to be liked in the UK now. This is Harry wanting to be liked. He's trying to be appealing again to ordinary people who have not enjoyed being called racist. Commentators have called him lonely out there. Others reckon he is waiting on a phone call from his brother that does not come. And the people who knew him longest describe the same change in different words. That the warm, chaotic larking about Harry everyone grew up watching has been sanded down into a careful, watchful figure who reads the room before he opens his mouth. That is the part I find hardest to argue away. You can dismiss a hostile half-sister. You can discount a commentator with a grudge. What you cannot easily explain is why the friends who have nothing to gain, who have never sold a word about him, quietly say the same thing. That the man they knew is not the man who turns up now. Nobody profits from that observation. Something in that man has switched off. And a switched off man usually has one eye on the door, which is the only reason this week's claim landed the way it did. Why nobody blinked. So, back to Lady C. I will say it again, plainly, because it has not stopped being true since I said it at the top. There is no proof. It may be nothing. Claims about this couple have been wrong before, and will be wrong again. And I would rather be the channel that tells you what the evidence actually supports than the one that tells you what you came here hoping to hear. But the reason nobody out there is straining to believe it is that they have already sat through everything you have just watched. The sworn testimony, the pew, Paris, the empty seat, the paperwork. A claim like this, about a couple sold to the world as the great romance of the century, ought to have gone off like a bomb. 9 years ago, it would have. Instead, it landed with a shrug. And a shrug is data. It tells you that the audience had already quietly filed this marriage under finished, and had done so without waiting for anyone's permission or any official confirmation. The claim changed nobody's mind. It matched a conclusion the public had already reached on its own from things they could see. And here is the detail that tells you how far this has fallen. You would expect a headline about Harry and a mystery woman to have the internet swooning. It did the opposite. The most liked comment under the whole story was a woman asking who on earth would want Harry in the first place. Thousands of likes. Another swore that if he were the last man breathing, she would not cross the road for him. That's not scandal, that's indifference. And indifference is so much worse. Which leaves one question actually worth arguing about. For years, the story ran one way. Meghan in front, Harry a step behind with the bags, delighted to be in the room. This week, it turned over. Now he is the one being whispered about, the one flying back to a country he swore he would never live in again, while she builds a life 3,000 miles away with less and less room in it for him. And whether there is another woman barely matters, because the real story was never the rumor. The real story is a man who swore to a court that this life cost him the girl he loved, and who then handed over everything he had left to build a bigger version of the exact machine that took her. He did not lose his old life to a tragedy. He signed it away himself with a grin and a streaming contract, and only added up the true cost years after the ink had dried. Now, before you answer, take the other side seriously for a moment, because it is stronger than his defenders admit. Harry was 33 years old. Nobody made him do any of it. He chose the interview, he chose the book, he chose the cameras, and he chose to say things about his own family that cannot be unsaid. He spent years complaining about intrusion, and then sold the most intrusive account of his own life anyone has ever published. He was not a boy who wandered into this. He was a grown man with the best legal advice in the world and every possible warning in front of him. So, tell me where you land. Is Harry a victim who lost his way? Or did he get precisely what he chose? Honestly, I could argue it both ways. Drop your verdict in the comments and settle it, because I read everyone. Hit the like button, it genuinely helps this reach more people who care. And subscribe on your way past, because the moment one of them slips, or the next solo trip quietly gets booked, we will be right back here taking it apart. Keep your eyes on Montecito. Somebody there is about to blink.